Summer 2006 held incredible promise for Madison Clark. At 17, she had just graduated from Westfield High School and was looking forward to attending Northwestern University, her acceptance letter proudly displayed on the family refrigerator. Her parents had gifted her something she'd been dreaming about: a 7-day Caribbean cruise with her best friend, Emma Rodriguez. Emma and Madison's friendship was the stuff of legend. Since middle school, they had been inseparably close, the type of friends who could communicate volumes with just a single glance. Where Emma was vibrant and outgoing, Madison was quieter and more studious. Emma was always ready to pull her shy best friend into new experiences, while Madison provided a grounding balance. They had meticulously planned every detail of the cruise, spending weeks selecting outfits and researching each port of call. The Clark family embodied what neighbors considered the perfect American household. Robert Clark, a successful insurance executive who coached Little League on weekends, and Patricia, a part-time school nurse who volunteered at the local animal shelter, had created a warm home environment. Their 14-year-old son Tyler adored his big sister, and their comfortable colonial house on Maple Street, complete with a white picket fence and golden retriever named Buddy, seemed like an idyllic setting. Madison herself was remarkable. Throughout high school, she had volunteered at the local hospital, nurturing a dream of becoming a pediatric nurse. Her guidance counselor, Mrs. Azim, guidance counselor, Mrs. A different Plea, meal proof. Henderson described her as the type of student who consistently looked out for others, responsible, intelligent, and deeply caring. Madison was preparing to embark on what was supposed to be the best summer of her young life. Her mother, Patricia, remembered her daughter's excitement, watching Madison spread cruise brochures across her bedroom floor, circling activities she wanted to try. Madison was practically bouncing with anticipation, a level of happiness her mother hadn't seen since her Northwestern acceptance. Little did anyone know that this promising journey would soon become a mysterious disappearance that would alter the Clark family's life forever. Not Emma Rodriguez was Madison's perfect complement. Where Madison was cautious, Emma was bold. Where Madison preferred quiet evenings, reading or watching movies, Emma loved parties and social gatherings. Despite their differences, or perhaps because of them, their friendship had flourished for 5 years. Emma's family had immigrated from Puerto Rico when she was young, and she often joked that Madison was more like a sister to her than her actual sister who lived in San Juan. The idea for the cruise had actually come from Emma's aunt, Maria Rodriguez, who worked for a travel agency in Hartford. She had secured a fantastic deal on a 7-day cruise aboard the Caribbean Dream, a mid-sized ship that would visit St. Thomas, Martin, and Barbados. The cruise was scheduled to depart from Fort Lauderdale on July 15, 2006, and return on July 22nd. It would be the girls' first time traveling together without their families, the celebration of their graduation and their upcoming transition to college life. Both sets of parents had initially been hesitant about letting their daughters go alone, but the girls had worn them down with promises of constant check-ins and responsible behavior. The cruise ship had a good safety record, and there would be hundreds of other passengers and crew members around at all times. What could possibly go wrong? In the weeks leading up to the departure, Madison threw herself into preparation with characteristic thoroughness. She researched each port of call, made lists of things to see and do, and even learned some basic Spanish phrases to use in the Caribbean islands. She bought a new digital camera, a Canon PowerShot that she was incredibly excited about, and planned to document every moment of their adventure. Emma, meanwhile, focused on the social aspects of the trip. She had heard that cruises were great places to meet people, and she was determined to make friends with other young passengers. She convinced Madison to pack some of her more stylish clothes and even helped her pick out a new bikini, despite Madison's protests that she'd rather wear a one-piece. The night before their departure, Madison had dinner with her family at their favorite Italian restaurant, Tony's, where she'd worked part-time as a hostess during senior year. She had always been a responsible student, often tutoring struggling classmates without being asked. She had never been in serious trouble, never experimented with drugs or alcohol, and had only been on a handful of supervised dates. Note, Madison Clark's last night at home was a whirlwind of anticipation. Her mother found her around midnight, surrounded by carefully folded clothes and toiletries, meticulously repacking her suitcase. "I'm just so excited, Mum," Madison said. embracing her mother tightly. This is going to be the best week ever. Years later, Tony Marcelli would vividly recall that evening. She was radiant, he said, brimming with excitement about her trip. She couldn't stop talking about the incredible adventure she and Emma were about to embark on. Patricia Clark would later replay this conversation thousands of times, not knowing it would be one of her final normal moments with her daughter. The morning of July 15th dawned bright and warm. Robert Clark loaded the girls' luggage into the SUV, while Patricia double-checked their passports, identification, and emergency contact information. Their plan was straightforward. Drive to Bradley International Airport in Windsor Locks, catch a flight to Fort Lauderdale, take a shuttle to the port, and board the Caribbean Dream. At the airport, Madison hugged her parents goodbye, confidently promising to call once they reached their cabin. "Don't worry about us," she told her mother with a reassuring smile. "We'll be fine. It's going to be amazing." Emma's parents met them to say their farewells. Maria Rodriguez packed extra snacks and repeatedly reminded the girls to be careful and stick together. "Look out for each other," she said, kissing them on the forehead, "and have the time of your lives." As their parents waved goodbye and watched the girls disappear through security, none could have imagined this cheerful summer send-off would be the beginning of a mystery that would haunt two families for over a decade. The flight to Fort Lauderdale was uneventful, filled with excited chatter about their upcoming adventure. Neither girl had any idea they were heading toward a week that would change everything, a week that would separate them forever, leaving one family desperately searching for their daughter, while the other would be forever altered by guilt and unanswered questions. In just a few days, Madison Clark would vanish without a trace, leaving behind only questions, heartbreak, and a best friend who would never stop searching for answers. Narn, the cruise ship, was a massive floating city, capable of hosting nearly 2,000 passengers and 800 crew members. Boarding in Fort Lauderdale on a Saturday afternoon, Madison and Emma were immediately impressed by its size and elegant design. Their cabin on Deck 7 was modest, a compact interior room with twin beds, a small bathroom, and just enough space for their luggage. Madison quickly claimed the bed near the porthole, despite it having no actual window, while Emma spread out on the other bed and began documenting their arrival with her digital camera. The first hour was spent exploring the ship's numerous amenities, which included multiple pools, a rock climbing wall, and sophisticated dining rooms. That evening, they attended the mandatory safety drill. Madison listened intently to every instruction, her responsible nature shining through, while Emma was more interested in surveying the other passengers, particularly a group of college guys from Florida who couldn't stop cracking jokes during the presentation. Their dinner companions quickly became a close-knit group. The table of 8 included the Hendersons, a retired Ohio couple celebrating their 40th anniversary, college students Jake Morrison and Chris Taylor from Florida State University, and Susan Chen, a 35-year-old marketing executive from San Francisco, traveling solo after a challenging divorce. Emma naturally emerged as the social coordinator, while Madison served as the thoughtful listener who tracked everyone's stories and asked insightful follow-up questions. Jake Morrison, a 21-year-old business major with a confident demeanor, showed particular interest in Madison. Despite her typical shyness, she found herself drawn to his attention, with Emma enthusiastically encouraging the potential connection. The first 2 days of the cruise passed like a dream. Calm Caribbean waters carried them toward their first destination, St. Thomas, as Madison and Emma settled into a comfortable routine of buffet breakfasts, poolside lounging, ship exploration, and elaborate dinners that brought their new friends together each evening. During their cruise, Madison and Emma signed up for a shore excursion to Coral World Ocean Park on their third day at sea. They spent the day swimming with sea turtles and snorkeling, capturing dozens of underwater photos. Madison was particularly thrilled about a shot of Emma swimming alongside a massive sea turtle. That evening, something seemed different about Madison. At dinner, she was more animated than usual, laughing at Jake's fraternity stories, and even agreeing to join the group for dancing later at the ship's nightclub. Susan Chen would later recall thinking how happy and liberated Madison appeared that night. Waves, the nightclub located on Deck 11, featured a dance floor, multiple bars, and a DJ playing current hits and classic dance tracks. The group settled at a large table near the dance floor. For the first time during the cruise, Madison actually danced, spinning around with Jake, while Emma cheered from the sidelines. Around 11:30 p.m., Madison left to use the restroom. Emma was deeply engaged in conversation with Chris Taylor and barely noticed her friend's departure. Several passengers saw Madison heading down the short hallway outside the main nightclub area, but she never returned to the table. Initially, Emma wasn't worried. She assumed Madison might have stepped outside for fresh air or gotten caught up in conversation. However, when 12:30 a.m. passed with no sign of her friend, Emma grew concerned. She systematically searched everywhere, checking restrooms, walking through the entire nightclub, and even exploring the deck above. Jake and Chris joined the search, checking the ship's casino, 24-hour pizza place, and deck areas where passengers often stargazed. They called Madison's name and asked other passengers if they had seen her. No one had. By 1 a.m., Emma was genuinely frightened. This behavior was completely unlike Madison, who was typically responsible and reliable. Her daughter Madison would never disappear without telling someone where she was going. She went to the ship's guest services desk on Deck 5 and spoke with Assistant Cruise Director Maria Santos, an experienced crew member with 8 years of cruise ship experience. Santos initially tried to calm Emma, suggesting Madison had probably just met some people and was hanging out somewhere on the ship. She recommended Emma return to her cabin and check if Madison was there. If she was still missing in the morning, they would file a report. But Emma's instincts told her something was seriously wrong. She insisted Santos begin an immediate search of the ship. Reluctantly, Santos agreed to have security check the most common areas where passengers might go, including public decks, lounges, and dining areas. By 3 a.m., with Madison still nowhere to be found, Santos escalated the situation to the ship's security chief, Captain Rodriguez. A more thorough search was initiated, involving multiple crew members who checked every public area, including storage areas, crew quarters, and the ship's medical center. Emma spent the rest of the night in a state of panic, alternating between searching the ship herself and waiting in their cabin, hoping Madison would walk through the door with a reasonable explanation. She tried calling Madison's cell phone repeatedly, but there was no signal in the middle of the Caribbean, and the calls wouldn't go through. As dawn broke over the Caribbean Sea on Tuesday, July 18, 2006, Madison Clark had been missing for over 6 hours. The ship continued toward its next port of call, St. Conio toward its next port of call, Martin, but the vacation atmosphere had been replaced by something much darker. Captain Rodriguez made the difficult decision to announce over the ship's public address system that they were searching for a missing passenger. The announcement during breakfast time sent a chill through the entire ship. Suddenly, the carefree vacation atmosphere was replaced by an undercurrent of anxiety and whispered conversations. Passengers who had been near the nightclub the previous evening were interviewed by ship security. Several people remembered seeing Madison leave her table around 11:30 p.m., and a few recalled seeing her walking toward the restrooms. But after that, her trail went cold. Now as night fell, the Caribbean dream seemed eerily quiet. Security cameras throughout the public areas had captured Madison leaving the nightclub at 11:32 p.m., walking toward the restrooms. But beyond that moment, she vanished without a trace. No cameras inside the restroom area recorded her movements, and she never appeared on any other ship surveillance. By Tuesday afternoon, Captain Rodriguez faced the most difficult decision of his career. With the ship thoroughly searched and no sign of Madison, he ordered a complete turnaround to retrace the previous night's route. The U.S. Coast Guard was immediately notified, launching one of the most extensive search and rescue operations in Caribbean waters that year. Emma, devastated, called Madison's parents from the ship's communication center. Patricia Clark's anguished scream echoed through the room as Robert Clark began making emergency travel arrangements to St. Martin. Within hours, 2 Coast Guard cutters, C-130 Hercules aircraft, and an MH-65 Dolphin helicopter were deployed to scan the vast ocean between St. Thomas and the ship's current position. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mitchell coordinated the search effort, describing it as a near-impossible needle-in-a-haystack mission. The search grid covered over 400 square miles, carefully calculating ocean currents, wind patterns, and the ship's exact route during the critical hours of Madison's disappearance. For 3 days, search teams scanned the Caribbean waters, but found nothing. No trace of Madison Clark emerged. No evidence explained whether she had fallen overboard, been a victim of foul play, or somehow left the ship at a previous port. FBI agent Daniel Foster was helicoptered in to assist with the investigation. Madison had simply disappeared, leaving behind only haunting questions, a shattered family, and a best friend consumed by guilt over failing to notice her friend's last moments in the nightclub that fateful night. Agent Foster, a 15-year veteran with extensive maritime crime experience, began an intensive investigation into Madison's disappearance. His first step was interviewing Emma Rodriguez, who sat across from him in a small office near the ship's security center. Emma was still in shock, desperately trying to recall every detail of that night. Tears streaming down her face, she told Foster, "I keep thinking if I hadn't been so focused on talking to Chris, maybe I would have noticed something was wrong." But gentle, having her walk through the entire evening, minute by minute. The details emerged. Madison was wearing a blue sundress with white sandals, had consumed 2 Diet Cokes and 1 strawberry daiquiri, and seemed unusually outgoing and happy. Her interactions with other passengers, particularly Jake Morrison, became a focal point of the investigation. Jake Morrison was questioned for over 3 hours. Visibly shaken, he insisted he knew nothing about her disappearance. "We were talking about meeting up when we got back to the States. He told Foster she was supposed to start at Northwestern in the fall, and I was going back to Florida State. We talked about staying in touch. Security camera footage provided critical information. At 11:32 p.m., Madison was seen entering the restroom area. However, she never emerged from that hallway. The cameras revealed 2 potential exit routes: back toward the nightclub, or through a service door leading to a crew area and an exterior deck. This service door, typically locked and off-limits to passengers, had been propped open that evening by a crew member, Carlos Mendez, who was bringing supplies from a lower deck. During extensive questioning, Mendez maintained he had closed and locked the door around 11:45 p.m. "The timeline is very tight," Agent Foster explained to Captain Rodriguez. The critical question remained: had Madison gone through the service door between 11:32 and 11:45, or was she still somewhere on the ship? They had investigated crew quarters, medical facilities, and areas where someone might be forcibly held. All crew members were interviewed and accounted for. Robert and Patricia Clark arrived in St. Martin on Wednesday morning, having taken the first available flight from Connecticut. Robert worked closely with Agent Foster and the Coast Guard, providing detailed information about Madison's background, habits, and potential reasons someone might want to harm her. Patricia clutched a recent photo of her daughter, desperately asking anyone if they had seen her. "Madison doesn't have enemies," Robert told Agent Foster during their first meeting. "She's never been in trouble, never involved with the wrong crowd. She's just a good kid excited about her future." As other possibilities were eliminated, the theory that Madison might have fallen overboard gained traction. The accessible deck section had railings lower than modern safety standards, making an accidental fall possible, though unlikely. However, this theory raised troubling questions. Why would Madison go through a crew-only service door? Why would she venture onto an unfamiliar deck area alone at night? And if she had fallen, why had no one heard a splash or cry for help? Emma tortured herself with these questions, replaying that evening thousands of times in her mind. "I was her best friend," she told Agent Foster. "I was supposed to protect her. I was supposed to notice if she was in trouble." The ship's passengers responded differently to the situation. Some formed impromptu search parties, combing through public areas already officially searched. Others seemed annoyed by the disruption, wanting to continue their vacation. The Henderson family, a retired couple from Ohio who had shared dinner with Madison and Emma, spent hours talking to other passengers, trying to piece together Madison's final moments. Susan Chen, a marketing executive from San Francisco, provided one of the most detailed accounts of Madison's behavior on her final evening. Something seemed different about her that night. According to Chen, Madison appeared more confident and willing to take risks. She was flirting with Jake, which Emma noted was highly unusual for her, almost like she was trying on a completely new personality. The Coast Guard launched an extensive search operation that continued for 72 hours. Oceanographers calculated potential drift patterns in the Caribbean currents, expanding the search area daily. Search aircraft flew methodical grid patterns over the sparkling blue waters, while Coast Guard vessels used sophisticated sonar and underwater cameras to scan the ocean floor in areas where Madison was most likely to have entered the water. By Friday, July 21st, Lieutenant Commander Mitchell faced the difficult decision to suspend the active search. During a press conference at the Coast Guard station in San Juan, She explained that they had covered every reasonable location where Miss Clark could potentially be found. Without additional information or evidence, continuing to deploy resources was no longer justifiable. The announcement devastated the Clark family. Patricia collapsed in her husband's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Robert, his face haggard from days without sleep, made a brief statement to the assembled media. "We're not giving up on our daughter. Madison is out there somewhere, and we're going to find her." The Caribbean Dream completed its cruise schedule, arriving back in Fort Lauderdale on Saturday, July 22nd, exactly 1 week after Madison and Emma had boarded with such excitement and anticipation. Emma disembarked carrying not only her own luggage but also Madison's suitcase, filled with unworn clothes and unsent souvenirs. Their journey home to Connecticut was emotionally charged. Emma rode with the Clark family in their rental car, the silence broken only by Patricia's occasional sobs and Robert's attempts to comfort her. Tyler, Madison's younger brother, hadn't spoken since learning of his sister's disappearance. He stared out the window with hollow eyes that seemed far too old for a 14-year-old. FBI agent Foster continued the investigation from the Miami field office, though the trail was growing colder by the day. The ship's crew had been thoroughly vetted, with no connections to Madison or apparent motives for harm. Passenger lists have been reviewed and background checks conducted. Weeks after the cruise, Agent Foster's call to Robert Clark provided no real progress. "We've exhausted immediate leads," he told Robert over the phone. "This doesn't mean we're closing the case, just that we need new information to move forward." The official investigation remained open, but active pursuit of leads had essentially ended. Madison Clark had become another statistic, another person who vanished without a trace in the vast expanse of the Caribbean Sea. Her case file would gather dust in FBI offices, periodically reviewed but never solved. The months following Madison's disappearance transformed the Clark household into a shrine of frozen time and desperate hope. Patricia Clark left her job at the elementary school, unable to concentrate on anything beyond searching for her daughter. She spent her days maintaining a massive bulletin board in the living room, covered with maps of the Caribbean, copies of police reports, and hundreds of photos from Madison's life. Robert tried to maintain some semblance of normality, returning to work at the insurance company after taking 6 weeks of family leave. His colleagues noticed the change immediately. The man who had once been quick with a joke and eager to discuss weekend baseball games now spoke in measured, careful sentences and kept Madison's school photo prominently displayed on his desk. He had hired a private investigator, a former FBI agent named Marcus Webb. Local news stations in Connecticut covered the story extensively, with Madison's school photo appearing on television screens and newspaper front pages. Tips poured into a hotline established by the FBI, but most were well-meaning yet unhelpful, mostly sightings from people who thought they had seen Madison in various locations around the Caribbean. For Emma Rodriguez, the guilt was overwhelming. She had returned to Connecticut, a different person, haunted by the knowledge that she had failed her best friend when Madison needed her most. She would start therapy within a month, but no amount of counseling could ease the burden she carried. The search for Madison Clark had failed. But for her family and friends, the real journey, the long, painful process of trying to find answers and learning to live with devastating loss, was just beginning. Webb had specialized in missing persons cases and worked Madison's case for 8 months. He meticulously re-interviewed cruise passengers, tracked dozens of tips, and consulted maritime experts about ocean currents and survival possibilities. In March 2007, he delivered a thorough but inconclusive report to the Clarks. "I found no evidence that Madison is alive," Webb wrote, "but I've also found no definitive proof that she's deceased. This case falls into a very small category of disappearances where we simply cannot determine what happened." The impact of Madison's disappearances was most evident in her younger brother Tyler. Once a confident and outgoing teenager, Tyler had become withdrawn and angry. His grades plummeted from A's and B's to C's and D's. He quit the baseball team, isolated himself from friends, and spent most of his time in his room playing video games or listening to music. His bitter conversations about Madison worried his parents. During a therapy session with Dr. Linda Morrison, Tyler expressed his frustration. "Everyone keeps saying she's probably dead. But what if she isn't? What if she's out here somewhere and we're just giving up on her?" Emma Rodriguez's connection to Madison's disappearance was particularly complex. Her freshman year at the University of Connecticut had lost its earlier excitement. She changed her major from communications to criminal justice, telling her academic advisor she wanted to help other families find their missing loved ones. Guilt consumed her daily life. Every Sunday after church, Emma would visit Madison's memorial stone in Riverside Cemetery, a marker erected by the Clarks. Despite having no body to bury, she would sit by the granite stone talking to Madison about her week, sharing college gossip, and apologizing repeatedly for not protecting her best friend. "I should have noticed you were gone sooner," Emma would whisper. "I should have followed you to the bathroom. I should have done something different." The Clark family's relationship with Emma remained close but complicated. Patricia treated her almost like a surviving daughter, calling regularly and frequently inviting her to dinner. Robert's approach was more reserved. Not Emma's connection to Madison's disappearance ran deep, though not out of blame. In fact, Tyler resented Emma, believing she should have somehow prevented Madison's vanishing. Her absence haunted their lives silently. By July 2007, the first anniversary brought renewed media attention. Patricia Clark appeared on morning news shows, clutching Madison's photo and desperately seeking information. The FBI released an age-progressed image depicting Madison at 18, while the Coast Guard confirmed the case remained open. Yet by 2008, law enforcement's regular communication dwindled. The private investigator's retainer expired, leaving the Clarks unable to continue professional searches. Their living room's bulletin board transformed from a dynamic information hub to a static memorial of exhaustive, unfruitful efforts. Emma's professional path reflected her personal mission. After graduating from UConn in 2010 with a criminal justice degree, she immediately began working as a victims advocate for Connecticut State Police. Her supervisors recognized her exceptional dedication to missing persons cases. Unaware of her deeply personal motivation, she developed remarkable investigative skills, particularly in digital tracking. Emma created Google alerts for Madison's name, meticulously checked missing persons databases, and even learned facial recognition techniques to compare photos of unidentified women throughout the Caribbean with her lost friends' images. Her father, Robert Clark, retired early in 2011, nominally due to a minor heart attack, but truly because work had become impossible. He devoted his retirement to volunteering with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, helping other families navigate complex legal and media landscapes surrounding disappearances. Patricia underwent the most profound transformation. Her consuming grief gradually evolved into purposeful action. She established a support group for families of missing persons, meeting monthly in their local church basement. Additionally, she collaborated with lawmakers to improve cruise ship safety regulations, advocating for enhanced camera coverage and stricter protocols, not protocols for reporting missing passengers. Nay, by 2012, 6 years after Madison's disappearance, the Clark family had settled into a painful routine. Their world had transformed around the absence of their daughter, marking her birthday each year with a small family gathering while clinging to hope that grew dimmer with each passing season. Patricia would tell other grieving families, "Madison's disappearance can't be meaningless. If they could prevent even one other family from experiencing such pain, perhaps some good could emerge from their loss." Her efforts culminated in the Cruise Vessel Safety and Security Act, signed into law in 2010, which required cruise lines to install additional security cameras, improve lighting in isolated areas, and maintain 24-hour medical facilities. Emma had moved to Hartford, working as a senior victims advocate specializing in cold cases. Her search for Madison had evolved with technology. She regularly scoured social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, looking for any trace of her friend. She even joined Caribbean travel groups and cruise ship enthusiast forums, hoping someone might share a photo or story containing a clue. The most painful moments came when Emma would see someone who resembled Madison from behind, a young woman with similar hair color and build walking ahead on a city street, or sitting in a coffee shop would make her heart race, hoping against hope that somehow, impossibly, it might be her missing friend. It never was. Dating had become difficult for Emma. How could she explain to someone new that her best friend had vanished 6 years ago, and that she still spent much of her free time searching for clues? Detective Sarah Walsh of the Connecticut State Police would call the Clark family twice a year, with updates that were rarely updates at all. The case remains active, she would tell Robert during their brief conversations. A small plaque in the lobby of the National Transportation Safety Board offices in Washington, D.C. reads, "In memory of Madison Clark and all passengers lost at sea, new information seemed increasingly unlikely." Madison Clark had become one of those stories that would slowly fade from memory, yet for her family, the search would never truly end. In the years following Madison Clark's disappearance, her family struggled to navigate the difficult terrain between hope and acceptance. Tyler, her brother, had graduated high school and was now attending community college, planning to transfer to a four-year school to study social work. He had inherited his parents' compassionate spirit, though he rarely discussed his missing sister. The case seemed destined to remain unsolved, another tragedy filed away in cold case archives. Yet sometimes the truth emerges in the most unexpected moments. For Emma Rodriguez, this moment came on a cold Wednesday evening in March 2018, nearly 12 years after Madison vanished from her Caribbean dream. Emma had developed an almost obsessive approach to digital investigation. Her work with the Connecticut State Police provided access to advanced search tools and facial recognition software. Each week, she would sit in a Hartford apartment with a glass of wine and her laptop, methodically searching social media platforms. Her ritual involved tracking leads long gone cold, checking and rechecking profiles that might impossibly connect to her missing best friend. Her search methodology was meticulous. She would start with basic searches for Madison Clark and name variations that expand to image searches using Madison's photos, hunting for facial matches or familiar features. Emma trained herself to look beyond obvious differences like hair color, weight changes, or potential plastic surgery that might alter appearance. On this particular evening at 9:47 p.m., an Instagram search would change everything. While scrolling through profiles of women around Madison's current age of 29, Emma encountered a profile that made her heart skip a beat. The account belonged to Sophia Martinez, with a profile picture showing a young woman in sunglasses, smiling in a tropical setting. Now Emma couldn't shake the feeling something was off about the woman in the photo. Her smile, face shape, and the way she held her head triggered a strong sense of familiarity. With trembling fingers, she clicked on the profile to explore more. The account was public but minimally populated, with around 30 photos scattered over 2 years. Most images depicted tropical landscapes and casual scenes that revealed little about the person behind the camera. But the 15th photo brought Emma's world to a standstill. A selfie taken in what seemed to be a small apartment showed a woman with shoulder-length dark hair and unmistakably familiar green eyes. She was older, with a slightly fuller face and subtle lines around her eyes, yet Emma would recognize those eyes anywhere. It was Madison, she was absolutely certain. Immediately, Emma screenshotted the image and opened her photo editing software. She placed the selfie side by side with Madison's high school graduation photo. The bone structure matched perfectly. The eyes, nose, even the small childhood scar on her left eyebrow, everything aligned. "Oh my God," Emma whispered to her empty apartment, her hands shaking uncontrollably. She spent the next 3 hours meticulously analyzing every photo on the Sophia Martinez account. Cross-referencing facial features, she sought additional confirmation of what her heart already knew. Several photos revealed distinctive moles and freckles that matched Madison precisely. A beach photo exposed a small birthmark on the shoulder, one Emma remembered from countless childhood slumber parties. But if this was Madison, where had she been for the past 12 years? And why was she using a different name? Her first instinct was to call the police, but something held her back. If Madison was alive and living under an alias, there had to be a reason. Was she in witness protection? Hiding from someone dangerous? Would immediate contact put Madison at risk? Instead, Emma decided to reach out directly through Instagram. She spent 2 painstaking hours crafting a careful message, deleting and rewriting it dozens of times. The challenge was communicating her recognition while appearing non-threatening, in case Madison's concealed identity stemmed from legitimate safety concerns. Her final message read, "Hi, Sophia. I know this might sound strange, but I think I know who you really are. I'm Emma Rodriguez, and I went to Westfield High School in Connecticut. You remind me so much of a dear friend I lost with years ago. Her name was Madison Clark, and she had a birthmark on her left shoulder, Jews, like the one I noticed in your beach photo. Emma spent Thursday scanning every detail of Sophia Martina's Instagram, calling in sick to work. Her focus was intense, creating a detailed timeline of posted photos, analyzing backgrounds and landscapes for clues. She had been searching for someone, refreshing her screen every few minutes after sending a message late the night before at 2:33 a.m. If you are who I hint you are, please know how your family has never stopped looking for you. I've never stopped looking for you. Please message me back if you feel safe doing so. Friday morning brought a breakthrough. Emma, is this really you? Oh my God, I can believe you found me. I've half about reaching you so many irons over he years, for I was scared. Are you really still in Connecticut? Can we alk? Emma's response was immediate. Yes, it's really me. I'm in Hartford now. Madison, everyone thinks you're dead. Your parents, Tyler, everyone has been mourning you for 12 years. What happened to you? Are you safe? The reply came quickly. It's a long story. A very long story. I'm safe now, bye. I wasn't for a long time. Can you call me? I'm in Costa Rica. Here's my number. Her hands trembling, Emma dialed the international number. 4 rings, then a familiar voice, older, with a slight accent, but unmistakably Madison. Tears flowed before words could form. Madison, we hoe you were dead, Emma sobbed. We looked for you everywhere. The Coast Guard searched for days. Your parents hired private investigators. I've been looking for you for 12 years. I know, Madison responded, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I wanted to contact you, to contact my family, but I couldn't. I wasn't safe. A heavy silence followed her next words. I didn't fall off his ship, Emma. I was a KW. Here's the rewritten text. 8 years in captivity. Madison's story hit Emma like a devastating revelation. Miguel Santos, a crew member on the cruise ship, wasn't just another staff worker. He was part of a human trafficking network that carefully selected victims. Santos had been watching American college girls for months, methodically searching for someone matching a specific profile. When he cornered Madison near the restrooms that night, he used a weapon to force her through the service door, the same door the FBI had investigated. Her journey was horrific. First Venezuela, then Colombia. Madison was sold like property, moved constantly, and prevented from contacting anyone from her previous life. She tried escaping multiple times, but these professionals always tracked her down. 4 years ago, everything changed. During a transfer between safe houses in Colombia, a local woman provided unexpected help. She gave Madison shelter and helped her obtain fake identification papers. Since then, she'd been living in Costa Rica, building a new life but terrified of potential pursuit. Emma listened, tears streaming down her face. The nightmare her friend had endured was beyond comprehension. You're not alone anymore, she insisted. Your family needs to know you're alive. We can protect you. Madison's voice wavered between hope and fear. She'd wanted to come home every single day for 12 years but remained terrified they might find her again. The state police and FBI could offer protection, but the trauma ran deep. What if they come for me? Madison whispered. Then we'll make sure they can't hurt you, Emma responded with fierce determination. Her friend was finally coming home. Here's the rewritten version. Madison's desire to return home set complex wheels in motion. After a 4-hour phone conversation that stretched late into the night, Emma sat in her living room, processing the incredible revelation. Her best friend, missing for 12 years, was not just alive but ready to come home. This wasn't a simple journey of buying a ticket. Madison was a human trafficking victim who had lived under a false identity, potentially still being sought by dangerous people. The situation demanded careful coordination with law enforcement agencies across multiple countries. On Saturday morning, Emma made the most difficult call of her life. She reached out to Patricia Clark, her 58-year-old friend whose temples were Clark, I need you to sit down. I found her. Madison is alive. The silence that followed was so profound Emma thought the call had disconnected. Then came a sound, part sob, part gasp, utterly heartbreaking. That's not possible. It's been 12 years. I know it sounds impossible, Emma explained, but I've been talking to her. She's in Costa Rica and wants to come home. A whirlwind of emotions erupted. Robert Clark broke down completely upon hearing the news. Their son Tyler now 26 and working as a social worker in New Haven, immediately drove to his parents' house. The entire weekend became a blur of conference calls between the family, Emma, and Madison, trying to piece together what had happened. Emma understood this was just the beginning. Finding Madison was only the first step. The real challenge would be bringing her home safely and ensuring those responsible for 12 years of unimaginable suffering would finally face justice. "Will you help me? Will you help me figure out how to come home?" Emma's immediate response was unwavering. "Of course, I'll help you with everything. We're going to get you home. We're going to get you back to your family." Habla. Nell Lemma reached out to Detective Sarah Walsh of the Connecticut State Police, who quickly involved both the FBI and the State Department. Within 2 days, Agent Daniel Foster, the same agent who originally investigated Madison's 2006 disappearance, was back on the case, now working through the International Operations Division. During their first meeting, Agent Foster emphasized the extraordinary nature of the situation. "In 20 years of working missing persons cases, I've never seen someone resurface after this long, especially under these circumstances," he told Emma. The process of bringing Madison home was incredibly complex. She had been living in Costa Rica under a false identity, which meant she was technically in the country illegally. Because she was legally declared dead in 2010, she had no valid U.S. passport or identification. The State Department had to collaborate closely with Costa Rican authorities to verify her identity and arrange emergency travel documents. Throughout her time in hiding, Madison had been staying with Maria Gonzalez in Puerto Viejo, a small coastal town. Maria, the woman who helped her escape 4 years earlier, had become like a mother to Madison. Her small house served as a sanctuary where Madison slowly rebuilt her life and learned to live without the constant fear that had defined her existence for 8 years. The FBI's investigation uncovered the extensive criminal network responsible for her trafficking. Miguel Santos, the cruise ship crew member who initially abducted Madison, was part of a sophisticated operation targeting young American women on Caribbean cruises. This organization had been active for over a decade, with Madison likely being one of dozens of victims. Santos himself had been killed in a drug-related shooting in Colombia in 2014, but other network members remained active. These ongoing criminal operations added another layer of complexity to Madison's return. Law enforcement agencies had to simultaneously ensure her safety and gather critical intelligence about the trafficking network. Dr. Rachel Stevens, a trauma specialist experienced in working with trafficking survivors, was brought in to coordinate Madison's psychological care. "What Madison has survived is unimaginable," she explained to the Clark family during a video conference. "She's going to need extensive support and therapy, and her reintegration into her old life will be challenging." Back to her family was fraught with emotional complexity. After spending 4 years in Costa Rica, building a new life as Sofia Martinez, the prospect of returning home filled her with deep anxiety. During phone calls with Emma, her voice betrayed inner conflict, a mix of longing and fear. "I've been Sofia for so long," she confided. "I speak Spanish more than English. I work in a small restaurant, live in a tiny house with someone who doesn't know my true story. It feels simple. It feels safe." Emma listened compassionately. "But it's not your real life," she gently reminded Madison. "Your parents need to see you. They need to know you're okay. And Tyler has carried guilt about your disappearance his entire adult life." The breakthrough arrived through a carefully planned video call, facilitated by Emma with FBI technical support. The connection was secure, untraceable, a critical detail given Madison's past. When Patricia Clark first saw her daughter's face after 12 years, she dissolved into sobs that echoed for nearly 10 minutes. Robert was frozen, barely believing his eyes. Tyler, who had driven from New Haven, repeatedly whispered her name, as if testing her reality. "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I'm so sorry I couldn't come home sooner," Madison said through tears. During their 3-hour conversation, she carefully shared her story, explaining her escape, describing Maria Gonzalez, who had saved her life, and outlining her quiet existence in Costa Rica. Yet underneath her words lay a profound fear. What if the people who took me are still out there? What if coming back puts you all in danger? Agent Foster, monitoring the call, provided reassurance. The FBI had been working extensively to neutralize threats. Multiple arrests had been made within the trafficking network, and comprehensive security measures were prepared to protect Madison and her family. On April 15, 2018, nearly 13 months after Emma's initial discovery, Madison Clark stepped off a plane at Bradley International Airport in Connecticut. FBI agents and State Department officials surrounded her, but her true protection was the family waiting in a secure terminal area. Tyler and Emma were her parents. The moment of reunion was deeply emotional for everyone involved. Patricia Clark clung to her daughter for nearly 20 minutes, repeatedly sobbing, "My baby, my baby." Robert kept touching Madison's face, almost needing to confirm her reality. Tyler, now taller with a beard, swept Madison up in a lengthy, powerful bear hug. Emma waited until the initial family reunion settled before approaching her best friend. When they finally embraced, both women were crying so intensely they could barely stand. "You never stopped looking for me," Madison whispered. "You never gave up." Emma's response was simple and heartfelt. "I couldn't. You're my best friend. I knew you were out there somewhere." Media attention was immediate and overwhelming. An international story unfolded: a teenager who vanished on a cruise and was found 12 years later through Instagram. The Clark family, collaborating closely with the FBI, carefully managed information released to protect Madison's privacy and ongoing safety. Returning home meant moving back into her childhood bedroom, which her parents had meticulously preserved. Her faded, yellowed Northwestern College acceptance letter remained pinned to the bulletin board, a time capsule representing the life interrupted at 17. Readjustment proved challenging for everyone. Madison battled panic attacks, nightmares, and agoraphobia. Simple activities like grocery shopping or dining out became sources of significant anxiety. After years of sleeping on floors and makeshift surfaces, she found traditional beds unsettling. Sudden noises and unexpected visitors frequently startled her. Gradually, with extensive therapy and unwavering support from her family and Emma, Madison began rebuilding her life. She enrolled in online college courses, pursuing the degree long denied to her. Motivated by her experiences, she started volunteering with trafficking survivor support organizations, helping other women who had endured similar traumas. The investigation into the trafficking network continued, with Madison's testimony proving crucial in identifying and prosecuting key organizational figures. Her case became instrumental in enhancing cruise ship security protocols and improving international trafficking investigation cooperation. Today, Madison Clare lives quietly in Connecticut, dedicated to advocacy work and continuing her healing journey. Madison Clark returned to Connecticut 6 years ago, carrying with her an extraordinary story of survival that continues to impact everyone involved. Her journey began as a teenager's vacation in 2006, which unexpectedly transformed into a decade-long nightmare that ultimately revealed the strength of human connection and resilience. Now 35, Madison has carefully constructed a life that balances personal privacy with a commitment to helping other trafficking survivors. She works as a program coordinator for the Connecticut Coalition Against Human Trafficking, an organization that didn't exist when she first disappeared, but has since become a critical support network for survivors statewide. Her approach to advocacy is intentionally behind the scenes. Rather than seeking public attention, Madison focuses on developing support programs and training materials. She understands that her story will always remain partially public, but she has found meaningful ways to contribute to anti-trafficking efforts while protecting her mental health and personal boundaries. During a rare interview marking her return's 5-year anniversary, she reflected, "I can't get back the years that were stolen from me, but I can use what I learned during those years to help prevent other families from going through what mine went through." Physically, the evidence of her ordeal has largely disappeared. Injuries have healed and lost weight has been regained. However, the psychological impact remains deeply ingrained and requires ongoing attention. Rachel Stevens, who has continued working with Madison since her return, explains that recovery for long-term trafficking survivors is complex and continuous. While Madison has made remarkable progress, Dr. Stevens emphasizes that trauma of this magnitude doesn't simply vanish. She's learned to manage her symptoms and build a fulfilling life. Dr. Stevens notes, "Offender is complex, but vigilance and self-care will always be necessary." Throughout her journey, Madison has chosen to maintain a carefully protected private life, deliberately avoiding social media under her real name to ensure her security and privacy. graduating summa cum laude with a social work degree in 2021. Her family's journey back to each other was complex and carefully managed, involving extensive family therapy to navigate the emotional landscape of her return. Tyler Clark, now 32 and a licensed clinical social worker specializing in trauma, emerged as one of Madison's strongest advocates and closest confidants. His professional perspective shifted dramatically, learning that healing is possible even from the worst circumstances. He changed how he approaches his work with clients and thinks about resilience. The family dynamics transformed significantly. Patricia Clark retired from her advocacy work with missing persons families, recognizing she needed to focus on her daughter who had returned rather than those still missing. The family home on Maple Street retained its physical appearance, but carried a fundamentally different atmosphere. Smaller, more intimate family gatherings now prioritize privacy and cautious normality. Emma Rodriguez's life underwent perhaps the most dramatic transformation. The guilt that defined her 20s was replaced by a profound sense of purpose. Her initial search for Madison led her to develop advanced digital investigation techniques, ultimately making her one of Connecticut's most effective cold case investigators. She now leads the state police's digital forensics and missing persons unit, with her methods adopted nationwide. Since 2018, she has solved 14 missing persons cases, including 3 involving human trafficking networks similar to Madison's. The Clark's healing process involved confronting complex emotions. Patricia struggled with guilt over not knowing her daughter was alive, while Robert battled anger towards the systems that failed to find Madison during the initial investigation. Their slow, careful rebuilding of relationships became a testament to family resilience and hope. Our technology now offers tools that didn't exist just a decade ago, helping solve seemingly impossible cases. For Emma, the answer might be hiding right on someone's social media profile. Their friendship has transformed through shared trauma and personal growth. Emma and Madison now connect monthly, fully aware their relationship can't replicate what existed when they were 17. They've both changed dramatically to survive their experiences, yet the core of their connection remains: loyalty, love, and deep understanding. We're different people now, Emma explains, but we had to become who we are to survive. The criminal investigation into Madison's trafficking case delivered significant legal victories. The FBI's work, bolstered by Madison's testimony and evidence, led to arresting and convicting 12 network members. This became a landmark prosecution, establishing new precedents for maritime trafficking investigations. While Miguel Santos, the cruise ship crew member who initially abducted Madison, was killed in Colombia years before her return, his death was examined during the broader investigation. Evidence suggested his murder related to internal criminal organization conflicts rather than law enforcement intervention. The investigation's impact extended far beyond Madison's individual case. The FBI discovered the responsible network had trafficked approximately 40 women over 15 years, predominantly from Caribbean cruise ships and resort areas. This revelation prompted substantial industry-wide security reforms. The Cruise Vessel Safety and Security Act, long championed by Patricia Clark, expanded to include stricter crew background checks, enhanced passenger tracking systems, and improved international law enforcement coordination. Captain Rodriguez, who commanded the Caribbean Dream during Madison's disappearance, retired in 2015. He cooperated extensively with the FBI and became a vocal advocate for industry-wide security improvements, emphasizing the critical need for systemic changes to protect potential victims. The disappearance of a 17-year-old girl and her eventual return have sparked profound discussions about human trafficking and maritime safety. Captain Rodriguez, reflecting on the case during congressional testimony, spoke about the emotional weight of knowing a predator existed within their crew. Law enforcement agencies, victim advocacy groups, and researchers have extensively studied Madison's story. Her case has been featured in documentaries, academic papers, and training materials worldwide, leading to significant changes in how missing person investigations are conducted. The previous assumption that a cruise ship disappearance automatically meant falling overboard has been replaced with more nuanced investigative approaches that consider trafficking scenarios early in the process. Beyond the investigative impact, Madison's story has provided hope to thousands of families with missing loved ones. Her return after more than a decade demonstrates that not all missing person cases end in tragedy and can reignite determination in cold case investigations. The broader implications of her experience raise complex questions. What other women might have been taken by the same criminal network? How many trafficking survivors are living under false identities, afraid to reveal themselves? What criminal organizations operate in the gray areas between international jurisdictions? On a deeply personal level, Madison confronts the life that was interrupted. She might have become a pediatric nurse, maintained her close friendship with Emma, potentially married and had children. Yet she chooses not to dwell on these hypothetical paths. Instead, she focuses on her current reality and the possibilities ahead. Her resilience lies not just in survival, but in her deliberate choice to transform her traumatic experience into something meaningful. Madison's story challenges our understanding of victimhood, showing that survival can be an act of profound strength and agency. Not her journey from a 17-year-old girl excited about her first cruise to a 35-year-old survivor helping others heal from trauma is a testament to human resilience and the possibility of finding light even in the deepest darkness. Madison Clark's story continues to unfold. She lives quietly but purposefully, surrounded by people who love her and protected by systems that failed her once but are determined not to fail her again. Emma's 12-year search for Madison wasn't just about finding a missing person. It was about refusing to let hope die, about maintaining faith in the possibility of miracles, and about the power of human connection to overcome even the darkest circumstances. Her work with trafficking survivors, her family's advocacy efforts, and Emma's career in law enforcement have created a legacy that extends far beyond one teenager's disappearance from a cruise ship. The teenager who vanished on a cruise in 2006 and was found 12 years later through Instagram is no longer missing. She's home, she's safe, and she's using her voice to ensure that other families don't have to endure the pain that hers experienced for over a decade. As we reflect on this extraordinary story of loss, survival, and reunion, we're reminded that the bonds of love and friendship can endure even the most impossible circumstances.